All right, so today we're looking at quadratic equations. Remember, this is a quadratic. Because it has that x squared, that's what makes it a quadratic function. It's going to make a parabola or a U-shaped graph. All right, so we've looked at standard form where it's ax squared plus bx plus c. We've looked at the factored form where it's x plus a number, x plus a number. But now we're going to start looking at vertex form, okay? When we look at vertex form, it adds in this hk. Vertex form is just like what it says. We're going to be using the vertex, which is point hk. Right? So your vertex is the hk, and then we'll solve for the vertex form. So to write a quadratic equation in vertex form, you need to know the vertex and any other point on the graph. So all you need is a vertex and a point on the graph. So our step one, we're going to identify and highlight the x, y, h, and k. Step two, we're going to substitute in our values of x, y, h, and k. Then we're going to use nsolve. Remember, that's in our calculator. That's menu. Let's double check. If you do new document, you want to save, say no. It's going to be menu, algebra 1. So menu 3, 1, if you want to write that down so you have it. And then you're going to rewrite your quadratic function in standard form using the hk and the a value that you solved for. So let's look at the first one. So it says write a quadratic function in vertex form that contains 3, 6 and vertex 2, 4. So identify and highlight the x, y, h, and k. So my vertex is hk. So that makes this the h and this the k. And then 3, 6 is any other point. So that's x and y. So I said identify and highlight. So if we look at the x, it's going to be 3. We're going to substitute it in there. So it's going to go right there. We'll go in order. So then y, the y is actually, remember, is the same thing as f of x. That means the same thing, so it's going to go there. H is 2. It goes right there, so we're going to stick it right there. K is 4. It goes right there. So we'll stick that right there. So now if we write it with just what we replaced, so we need the y, so this is 6. The x is 3. And then see how that's a minus, so you just leave minus. And then minus your h, which is a positive 2, so you just leave the 2. And then k is 4. So we just substitute it in. Now we're going to type this into a calculator. So menu 3, 1, nsolve. So we have inside the parentheses, we type 6 equals a. So we'll use a, parentheses, 3 minus 2, close parentheses, squared plus 4. You want to leave all that. Then remember, because it's nsolve, after you type it in, you have to do comma, and in this case, we use the letter A, so we're going to put A. If you would use X, you'd use comma X. If you used Y, you'd say comma Y. We used A, so we're going to say comma A. All right, so if we look, it came back with error function is not defined, so we typed something in wrong. If we look, what happened was, I just did a parentheses. What you need to do, so if we come back down here, menu 3, 1, we type 6 equals a. You want to do a times. So do a multiply, open parentheses, 3 minus 2, close parentheses, squared, plus 4. Your calculator doesn't like that a is right next to it. It doesn't understand to multiply it. So what you need to do is you have to tell it to multiply. So then comma a and hit enter. So in this case, we get that a is 2. So we did step 1. We identified and highlighted our x and y's. We did step 2. We substituted in. Step 3, we solved for a. So now step 4, you're going to write the quadratic function in standard form using h, k, and a. So our standard form, I said standard form, that's vertex form, because that's the form we want. Remember, vertex form is f of x is equal to a x minus h squared plus k. So if you remember, Your h is the 2. Your k is the 4. But now we've added a different variable, the a, which we just solved for. So that's that. So when we substitute them in, we get that f of x is equal to 2x minus 2 squared plus 4. So be sure you use your highlighters because that helps you with substitution. All right, so looking at example 2, it says write a quadratic function in vertex form that contains vertex v. So this is our vertex, making this h, k. And then point P, so this is your x, y. And I'm going to use the same colors I did before. So if we scoot it down, my x is yellow. Oh, and I already messed up. X is yellow. Y is orange. Your H, so that's purple. K is pink. So then I didn't give you all the extra stuff, but if you rewrite it, f of x is equal to a x minus h squared plus k. So then this is your orange. So we're going to substitute in right there. This is your x, so that'll go right there. H. And then plus k. So my f of x, which is negative 5, is equal to a, parentheses, 3 minus your h, which is 5 squared, plus my k, which is negative 1. So if we type it in to solve for our a, menu 3(1), negative 5 equals a times, open parentheses, 3 minus 5, close parentheses, squared, plus a negative 1. That's a mistake because I forgot to put comma a and hit enter. So we get that a is negative 1. So that makes, when we go to rewrite it in vertex form now, we have f of x is equal to a x minus h squared plus k. So when we substitute in, now my a goes there. Here's my h. And here's k. So we get f of x is equal to negative 1 x minus 5 squared plus negative 1. Now we need to rewrite that. We don't want plus a negative, and we don't need a negative 1 out front. So if we just say f of x is equal to a negative x minus 5 squared plus a negative 1 is minus 1. That's your simplest form. You might want to pause it, make sure you have all that written down, because I'm going to turn to the back for one more example. So when we're looking at example 3, it says write a quadratic function in vertex form for the graph below. So remember, we need a vertex and we need a point. All right. So if we look at our vertex though, remember it's either the lowest or the highest, and right here is our lowest point. So that's negative 1, 2, 1. So my vertex is negative 2, 1. And then any other perfect point, well, if you look right there, there's your y-intercept. So it's going to be 0, 5. So here is my hk, here is my xy. So if we were to rewrite it, we would have f of x is equal to, and you might need to look back, and that's okay, a times x minus h squared plus k. So then we substitute in. Let's see if I can remember. So this is my x. This is my y. And then my h. Sorry, guys. This is my y. That's my h. and then k. So when we substitute in, f of x is 5 is equal to a, 0 minus my h, which is purple, so minus negative 2 squared, plus k, which is 1. So when we do menu 3-1, we get 5 equals a times, open parentheses, 0 minus a negative 2, close parentheses, squared, plus 1, comma, a. We get that a is equal to 1. So we're almost done because now we have our a. If we're going to substitute it back in, we have f of x is equal to a x minus h squared plus k. We remember our highlighting. So now this is my a. It's going to go there. My h. And then my k. So when we substitute in, for vertex form, f of x is equal to 1 x minus a negative 2 squared plus my k. Everything is substituted in, but it's not in its simplest form yet. I do not need that 1 out front. It's an understood. So when we do x, we can leave it off. Minus a negative, remember, is plus 2 squared plus 1. There is my vertex form.